Captain Sarah Chen had seen many things during her 5 years stationed on Kepler 442b, but nothing quite like the small, crystalline being that burst through the emergency airlock of Mining Station Epsilon. The creature stood barely 3 feet, tall, its translucent blue skin flickering with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed frantically in what Sarah had learned was the Zephyrian equivalent of tears. "Please, human! Help! My mother is trapped!" the young Zephyrian pleaded, his melodic voice crackling through the universal translator, his large, opalescent eyes fixed on Sarah with desperate hope. Sarah knelt down to the child's level, her weathered mining suit creaking. "Slow down, little one. What's your name?" "Crix 7742, the boy whispered, his light patterns dimming with exhaustion. "The cave-in. In the crystal mines. Mother was harvesting luminite when the tunnel collapsed. The others, they say it's too dangerous. They left her." Sarah's jaw tightened. She knew the Zephyrian mining crews well. Cautious to a fault, they prioritized collective safety over individual risk. It was logical, even admirable in most circumstances. But Sarah was human, and humans had different priorities. "How long?" "Ego?" she asked, already reaching for her emergency kit. 2 solar cycles, Crix replied, hope flickering back into his patterns. "But Mother is strong. She's in the deep chamber. There might be air pockets. 2 days. In Sarah's experience, that could mean life or death depending on a dozen variables. She activated her comm unit. "Chen to base. I need a full rescue kit, thermal charges, and the heavy excavator. Emergency authorization." "Negative, Captain," came the reply from Commander Torres. "Zephyrian Council has deemed the site unstable. Further excavation could trigger a larger collapse." Sarah looked at Crix, whose patterns had dimmed to barely visible flickers. The boy had come to her because humans had a reputation across the galaxy, a reputation for doing impossible things, for impossible reasons. "Copy that, Command. Chen out." She switched off the comm and smiled at Crix. "Come on, kid. Let's go get your mother." The journey to the mine took 40 minutes in Sarah's terrain rover. Crix sat silently beside her, his small hands pressed against the window as they approached the collapsed entrance. The site was indeed dangerous. Massive crystal formations jutted at unstable angles, and the air itself seemed to shimmer with displaced energy from the damaged luminite veins. Sarah surveyed the wreckage with practiced eyes. The main entrance was completely blocked, but thermal scans showed a secondary fissure that might lead to the trapped chamber. It would require crawling through spaces barely wide enough for a human, with no guarantee of structural integrity. "This is madness," muttered Dr. Vex, the Zephyrian geologist who had reluctantly agreed to assist. "The probability of success is less than 12%. "Then we better make it count," Sarah replied, strapping on her headlamp and checking her oxygen levels. The first 100 meters were the worst. Sarah crawled through jagged crystal formations, her suit's environmental systems working overtime to maintain pressure as luminite dust swirled around her. Behind her, she could hear Crix's whispered prayers in the ancient Zephyrian tongue. The tunnel suddenly opened into a larger cavity, and Sarah's headlamp illuminated a figure slumped against the far wall. Zara 3891, Crix's mother, was barely conscious but alive. Her breathing was shallow, and one arm appeared to be trapped under a fallen crystal beam. "Zara? Can you hear me?" Sarah called out as she approached. The adult Zephyrian's eyes fluttered. Open, her patterns weak but recognizable as surprise and gratitude. "Human? Why, because your son asked me to," Sarah replied simply, examining the trapped arm. The crystal beam was massive, easily 3 times Sarah's weight. In standard gravity, it would be impossible to lift. But Kepler 442b had lighter gravity, and Sarah had something else: human stubbornness. She positioned herself carefully, planted her feet, and heaved. The crystal shifted slightly. Again. A little more. On the third attempt, she felt something give, and the beam rolled away just enough for Zara to pull her arm free. Impossible. Dr. Vex's voice crackled through the comm. Thermal readings suggest that beam weighs over 400 kilos. Sarah helped Zara to her feet, supporting the injured Zephyrian. Doc, when you've watched humans lift vehicles off their children or run into burning buildings for strangers, you learn that impossible is just another word for hasn't been done yet. The journey back was slower but steady. Sarah's muscles screamed in protest, and her oxygen levels dropped dangerously low, but she kept moving. Crix's patterns blazed with joy when he saw his mother emerge from the tunnel, and soon both Zephyrians were glowing so brightly that they illuminated the entire mining site. Hours later, as medical teams tended to Zara's injuries, Commander Torres arrived at the scene. Captain Chen, you violated direct orders and endangered civilian lives. Sarah nodded, unsurprised. Yes, sir, I did. The Zephyrian Council wants to award you their highest honor for civilian rescue, Torres continued, his stern expression cracking slightly. And apparently, young Crix has been telling everyone in 3-star systems about the miracle human who moved mountains for a stranger. Sarah looked over at Crix, who was holding his mother's hand while she received treatment. The boy's patterns had settled into the steady, warm glow that Zephyrians displayed when truly content. Not a miracle, Commander, Sarah said quietly. Just human. As news of the rescue spread across the galaxy's communication networks, it became another story in the growing legend of humanity, the species that would risk everything for anyone, that treated the impossible as merely improbable, and that measured success not in statistics, but in lives saved. In the depths of space, on 1,000 different worlds, other species would hear Crix's story and wonder at the strange, stubborn, magnificent creatures called humans. And perhaps, in their own moments of desperation, they too would seek out these impossible beings who had made miracles their specialty. Because sometimes, when all logic says to give up, what the universe really needs is someone too foolish or too human to listen,